It is human nature to try to fit in. And it's good knowing you fit in somewhere, whether it be in a club with a common interest, a an organization, shared culture, or shared life experience in the form of trauma or loss. And being the same race as someone else can definitely facilitate the process of making friends and creating these bonds with other people within these communities. And I never really sat down and thought about the implications of race until halfway through middle school. And surprisingly, not surprisingly, during middle school years is when bullying becomes the most prominent. And evidence suggests that bullying is more prominent towards those of a biracial background. And going to an international school in Korea didn't really make that any different for me. And although no one group felt like the majority, like there wasn't a lot of white people, there wasn't crazy amount of Korean people, even black people. Like nobody was really the majority in our school student body. But I definitely did feel like a minority in that group, as I only knew like one or two other black and Korean people, or black and Asian people in general. But what I noticed was that many kids tended to have friends who looked like them or had a similar cultural background as them, and this is proven to be a common occurrence as studies show that people tend to have friends who resemble them, either on a cultural level or on a physical level. And me, as a half black and half Korean kid, had a hard time relating to my Korean peers, as my Korean speaking skills were elementary at best, and my skin tone was a lot darker than the skin tone of your average Korean male, Korean person in general. But I remember trying so hard to fit in with my Korean friends. I used to bring Korean food to lunch with my lunchbox and eat it with chopsticks, while all my Korean friends would eat just like the standard school lunch, burgers and pizza. And I used to go out of my way to have crushes on all the Korean girls in my school, just to show the Korean guys I was one of them. I was one of them. But in the end, that didn't really make me fit in more. If anything, it made me feel more alone in that sense. And on the flip side, it was hard for me to relate to my black peers because my black dad is a Republican, and he's a little different than like your average typical black father figure. I would say. And I tried out for many sports teams, including basketball and football, because that's what a lot of my black peers were doing at the time, as well as trying to get interested in clothing and things of that nature, clothing and shoes. But none of those things were really what I was actually interested in. I was never really good at sports other than like table tennis, and I never really was too into clothes and shoes and things of that sort. But eventually I just decided I would never fit in, and I just stopped trying to fit in at all. But what that made me think about and realize was what what is it about fitting in that makes people feel so good? Is it the sense of security that you gain from it? Is it the sense of knowing who you are and that you can relate to others through that community that you form? Or is it because you don't want to feel lost and out of place? Well, I decided during this time, around the end of middle school, that I would no longer be a slave to my cultural background. And I decided that I would be myself, you know? Because culture is made by the people. We shape the culture, and the culture shapes us. But it's up to the individual to decide which one is more affected in that exchange. And on to my next topic. The mother of all demographic surveys, the US National Census, um, didn't actually allow more than one race to be reported. So a biracial or an other group on the census until 2000, which is kind of huge. That's very recently. That was after I was born. So I would on my on the census in 1999 when it had to be reported that I could only choose black or Korean on the ballot, but that really shouldn't be the case. I shouldn't have to choose between one race or the other, or making myself feel like I'm betraying one of my parents when I have to choose between one of them. And I think that shouldn't be the case for any biracial person, because they're both of your parents as a biracial person deeply influence how you grew up, and a biracial person is fully entrenched in both their ethnic backgrounds and should be viewed as such, rather than half of two. It should be a whole of two, you know. And that brings me on to my next point, which is the fact that the internet has made everything a lot easier for people who are extremely unique in many different aspects. And you can be a part of a lot of niche groups for almost anything nowadays, like let's say knitting, paddle boarding, even though it's not really that niche. But you get the gist. Anything, anything that you might seem, or like it might seem like not many people enjoy it around you in your community, you can go on the internet and find thousands, if not tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of people who are just as into what your field of expertise or what you're interested in they're just as interested in that as you, and you can form a lot of great bonds through the internet. And it's made, in my opinion, being biracial a lot easier as well, because there's icons such as Logic, Barack Obama, Tiger Woods, and that's just a couple, just to name them, who represent the biracial community and have many accolades and have many accomplishments. And it just makes it's just people for us as a community to look up to, because they set a precedent for us, I guess you could say. And overall, I used to see being biracial as more of a bad thing, more of a curse, like not being able to completely fit into one category or the other, and always being seen as the ambiguous race guy. People don't want to ask me like what where I'm from or like what my cultural background is, but I view it as an opportunity to prove myself and to prove that I'm not only a an amalgamation of my parents' ethnic backgrounds. I'm not just boiled down to my ethnicity, I can't just be boiled down to just, my genetic makeup, I guess, but more so my experiences as a person and my aspirations, like what my hopes and dreams are for the future. And I hope that everybody can one day realize that although culture is very important, the culture can shape a person. Do realize that you as a person can shape the culture. Thank you.